Alright, we'll go and GoPro on here. Yes, let's make sure it's lined up good. Okay, so it is John Eldredge's book. Hey, Adelia, hope you're doing well. What was unique? Last week you shared pictures of your husband fishing. What was it? Did he graduate something too? I don't know, I scanned through it so quick. I try to limit time on social media, but for important things like this, I like it because it reaches a lot of people. You know, I don't have like a lot of friends, but it's very select friends that I have. But yeah, I've been, got a lot of special people in my life, but a close circle of friends that are there to encourage or motivate or be there for me when I need to talk to somebody that already does have some knowledge and wisdom. But all my knowledge and wisdom I get from Christ, from Father God, from Abba, and I hope my friends get that too. So that's why, ow! Anybody see that cat bite me? There's a cat down here. It's Miss Stormy. If you watch these a lot, you'll get to know Miss Stormy a lot. She likes to be read to. So this will be John Eldredge's book, Wild at Heart, recommended by a friend. We're going to chapter 2. I already did chapter 1, all of it. This will be chapter 2. Let's see what it's called. The Wild One Whose Image We Bear. Alright. How would telling people to be nice to one another get a man crucified? What government would execute Mr. Rogers or Captain Kangaroo? Philip Yancey. Safe. Who said anything about safe? Course. He isn't safe, but he's good. C.S. Lewis. This is a stem of the victorious stock, and let us fear the native mightiness and fate of him. Henry V. Interesting. Alright. Remember that little guy I told you about? With the shiny boots and the pair of 6-shooters? The best part of the story is that it wasn't all pretend. I had a place to live out those dreams. My grandfather, my father's father, was a cowboy. He worked his own cattle ranch in eastern Oregon, between the desert sage and the Snake River, and though I was raised in the suburbs, the redemption of my life and the real training grounds for my own masculine journey took place on that ranch, where I spent my boyhood summers. Oh, that every boy should be so lucky to have your days filled with tractors and pickup trucks, horses and roping steers, running through the fields, fishing in the ponds. I was Huck Finn for 3 wonderful months every year. How I loved it when my grandfather, Pop is what I called him, would look at me, his thumbs tucked in his belt, smile and say, saddle up. I have a similar experience. I used to go to Pensacola almost every summer for at least a few weeks, and my aunt and uncle lived on the bayou right there, access to the Gulf of Mexico, and yeah, they had a sailboat, they had canoe, they lived right on the water in a very nice townhouse, they had dogs, they had friends with a bigger house on the bayou too, and pretty cool opportunity from a young person, I think. Usually I went alone, but when I went to Grandma and Grandpa's house in Jacksonville, and then in Altamont, Florida a little bit. Jacksonville, Florida, same thing. Me and my brother just summers off just to go goof off and explore. Wild at heart, right? Alright. One afternoon, Pop took me into town to my favorite store. It was a combination feed and tack hardware ranch supply shop. The classic dry goods store of the Old West. A wonderland of tools and equipment, saddles, bridles and blankets, fishing gear, pocket knives and rifles. It smelled of hay and linseed oil, of leather and gunpowder and kerosene, all the things that thrill a boy's heart. That summer, Pop was having a problem with an overrun pigeon population on the ranch. He hated the dirty birds, feared they were carrying diseases to the cattle. Flying rats is what he called them. Pop walked straight over to the firearms counter, picked up a BB rifle and a quart-sized milk carton with about 1 billion BBs in it and handed them to me. The old shopkeeper looked a bit surprised as he stared down at me, squinting over his glasses. Isn't he a bit young for that? Pop put his hand on my shoulder and smiled. This is my grandson. How? He's riding shotgun for me. Cool. Where do we come from? Next subtitle. I may have walked into that feed store a squirrely little kid, but I walked out as Sheriff Wyatt Earp, the Lone Ranger, Kit Carson. I had identified a place in the story. I was invited to be dangerous. If a boy is to become a man, if a man is to know he is one, this is not an option. Man has to know where he comes from and what he's made of. One of the turning points in my good friend Craig's life, maybe the turning point, was the day he took back his father's name. Craig's father, Al McConnell, was killed in the Korean War when Craig was only 4 months old. His mother remarried and Craig was adopted by his stepdad, a sour old Navy captain who would call Craig a seagull whenever he was angry with him. Talk about an identity, a place in the story. He'd say, Craig, you're nothing but a seagull. All you're good for is sitting, squawking, and yeah, you get the idea. When Craig was a man, he learned the truth of his heritage, how his dad was a warrior who had been cut down in battle, how if he had lived, he was planning on going to the mission field to take the gospel to a place no one else had ever gone before. Craig discovered that his real great-grandfather was William McConnell, the first Protestant missionary to Central America, a man who risked his life many times to bring Christ to a lost people. Craig changed his name to McConnell and with it took back a much more noble identity, a much more dangerous place in this story. Would that we were all so fortunate. Many men, ashamed of their fathers. You're just like your father is an arrow many a bitter mother fires at her son. Most of the men I know are trying hard not to become like their fathers. But who does that leave them to follow after? From whom will they derive their sense of strength? Maybe it would be better to turn our search to the headwaters, to that mighty root from which these branches grow. Who is this one we allegedly come from, whose image every man bears? What is he like? And a man's search for his strength, telling him that he's made in the image of God, may not sound like a whole lot of encouragement at first. To most men, God is either distant or he is weak. The very thing they'd report on their earthly fathers. Be honest now. What is your image of Jesus as a man? Isn't he the sort of meek and mild? A friend remarked, I mean, the pictures I have of him show a gentle guy with children all around, kind of like a Mother Teresa. Yes, those are the pictures. I've seen them myself in many churches. In fact, those are the only pictures I've seen of Jesus. They leave me with the impression that he was the world's nicest guy. Mr. Rogers with a beard. Telling me to be like him feels like telling me to go limp and passive. Be nice, be swell, be like Mother Teresa. I'd much rather be told to be like William Wallace. Braveheart, right? William Wallace. Braveheart indeed. How far are we going? How much time? Yeah, we'll get one more. Here we go. Wallace, if you'll recall, is the hero of the film Braveheart. He is the warrior poet who came as a liberator of Scotland in the early 1300s. In the movie, when Wallace arrives on the scene, Scotland has been under the iron fist of English monarchs for centuries. The latest king is the worst of them all, Edward and the Longshanks, a ruthless oppressor. Longshanks has devastated Scotland, killing her son and raping her daughters. The Scottish nobles supposed prosecutors of their flock have instead piled heavy burdens on the backs of the people while they line their own purses by cutting deals with Longshanks. Wallace is the first to defy the English oppressors. Outraged, Longshanks sends his armies to the field of Stirling to crush the rebellion. The Highlanders come down in groups of hundreds and thousands. It's time for a showdown. But the nobles, cowards all, don't want to fight. They want a treaty with England and will buy them more land and power. They are typical Pharisees, bureaucrats, religious administrators. Without a leader to follow, the Scots begin to lose heart. One by one, in a larger number, they start to flee. At that moment, Wallace rides in with his band of warriors, blue war paint on their faces, ready for battle. Ignoring the nobles, who have gone to parley with the English captains to get another deal, Wallace goes straight for the hearts of the fearful scouts. Sons of Scotland, you have come to fight as free men, and free men you are. He gives them an identity and a reason to fight. He reminds them that a life lived in fear is no life at all. That every last one of them will die someday. And dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom? He tells them they have what it takes. At the end of the stirring speech, the men are cheering. They are ready. Then Wallace's friends ask, "Fine speech. Now what do we do?" "Just be yourselves." "Where are you going?" "I'm going to go pick a fight." Finally, someone is going to stand up to the English tyrants, while the noble jockeys for positions. Wallace rides out and interrupts the parley. He picks a fight with the English overlords, and the Battle of Stirling ensues. A battle that begins with liberation of Scotland. Now, is Jesus more like Mother Teresa or William Wallace? The answer is it depends. If you're a leper, an outcast, a pariah of society, whom no one has ever touched because you are unclean, if all you have ever longed for is just one kind word, then Christ is the incarnation of tender mercy. He reaches out and touches you. On the other hand, if you're a Pharisee, one of those self-appointed doctrine police, watch out. On more than one occasion, Jesus picks a fight with those notorious hypocrites. Take the story of the crippled woman in Luke 13. Here's the background. The Pharisees are like the Scottish nobles. They too load heavy burdens on the backs of God's people, but do not lift a finger to help them. What is more, they are so bound to the law that they insist it is a sin to heal someone on Sabbath, for that would be doing work. They have twisted God's intention so badly that they think that man was made for the Sabbath, rather than Sabbath for man. Mark 2:27. Christ has already had a number of skirmishes with them, some over this very issue, leaving those quizzling wild with rage. Luke 6:11. Does Jesus tiptoe around the issue next time so as not to rock the boat, the preference of so many of our leaders today? Does he drop the subject in order to preserve church unity? Nope, he walks right into it. He baits them, he picks a fight. Let's pick up the story there. One Sabbath day, as Jesus was teaching in a synagogue, he saw a woman who had been crippled by an evil spirit. She had been bent double for 18 years and was unable to stand up straight. When Jesus saw her, he called her over and said, "Woman, you are healed of your sickness." Then he touched her, and instantly she could stand straight. How she praised and thanked God, but the leader in charge of the synagogue was indignant that Jesus had healed her on the Sabbath day. "There are 6 days of the week for working," he said to the crowd. "Come on those days to be healed, not on the Sabbath." Luke 13:10-14. Can you believe this guy? What a weasel. Talk about missing the point. Christ is furious. But the Lord replied, "You hypocrite, you work on the Sabbath day. Don't you untie your ox or your donkey from their stalls on the Sabbath and lead them out for water? Wasn't it necessary for me, even on the Sabbath day, to free this dear woman from the bondage in which Satan has held her for 18 years? This shamed her enemies, and all the people rejoiced at the wonderful things he did." Luke 13:15-17. Pretty good. We'll probably end it there. That is chapter 2. That's chapter 2. Going page 22 through 27. Pretty good. Looks like the premise is standing up for Christ, for God, and your rights, and other stuff. But as I always leave it, remember to pray. Remember to pray. Prayer is super powerful. I need to practice this more. I've been doing good, but I forgot to be very specific. You could be very specific with God and pray about a situation you're going through, or something you want to do but you're not sure to do it, because you need to wait on God with everything, but everything with prayer. When you prayer and patience, just waiting on God, it absolutely works, because He'll open and He'll close doors, and it'll be awesome to see closed doors. To me, I love that, but I love to see the awesome open doors too, because you see how it flows. Everything just flows right when you're in the will of God. And how do we say that there is a season for everything? So be in prayer, and you can find out if you're ready for that yet, because there is a plan already marked out for you, and He has blessings already ready for you. But if you're not ready for it yet, as Dr. Charles Stanley, he would give the example of his son asked for a pocket knife, but his son was not ready for a pocket knife yet. What if he accidentally left it out and open, and he was in bed and rolled over on her on the floor, stepped on, and there would be a bloody situation? You're not ready for that yet. A lot of people pray about relationships, boyfriend, girlfriends, or am I supposed to get ready? Or send that special person, but God says, you're not ready for that yet. Or I have you doing something else, but I see Him, you're not ready for that yet. So in the waiting, be patient. He's in the waiting. One of my favorite songs by Kim DeMarco, right? Take courage. He's in the waiting. Gotta be in prayer. Gotta be patient. Always pray for more obedience, more faith, and above all, probably more love. More love to be able to receive love and to give love. But the overall, how did I say it to Michael today? The overall umbrella of everything is to desire a closer relationship with God. When I asked him what he desired, that's what it was. What he prays for, that's what it is. And ultimately, that is what it is. That is what it is. Because you cannot go wrong when you're in close relationship with God. So, I'll leave it there. Love you guys as usual. Remember to be in prayer. Pray for me. Pray for Elena. Pray for friends and family and co-workers. Pray for a closer relationship with God. See ya!